So today we're going to talk about Resilient Shield, the CDC Center for Forecasting and Analytics and Reference Design for Public Health Integration and Convergent Intelligence. And today, Eli Aronoff-Spencer is going to be able to talk to us about these things and his new exciting program. And he is an assistant professor, about to be promoted to associate, hopefully any days soon, here in the Division of Infectious Diseases and Global Public Health. And he's been an amazing partner within the Prepare Institute. He's also the director for the Center for Health Design and Health Initiatives, and he's part of the Design Lab and the Distributed Health Lab, Qualcomm Institute. He carries a lot of hats and has a lot of connections, but that's who Eli is. If anybody knows, he does that very well. He's jointly appointed in the division, but also in all those other places that I talked about. Especially, he is the director of health initiatives and leads the Design Lab Center for Health Design. He's a physician scientist, MD, PhD, whose work ranges from strengthening health systems in resource limited settings, where he and I worked closely with some projects in Mozambique, which were quite amazing, and then to developing biometrics and diagnostics for all of our health. I think that's it. And I think I see Eli, so I think we're good to go. Thank you, Eli.
Well, thanks, Davey. Apologies, team. You get me on my cell phone because I have a special computer that doesn't like Zoom. So would you mind Steele driving the slides? I'm glad I sent them to you.
Yeah, sure. One sec.
All right. Well, again, thanks, Davey. Thanks, everybody, for being here. I'm embarrassed by Davey's very nice intro. I'm excited to talk about today's topic, our new CDC Center. And full disclosure, our rebudget went in at 10 o'clock, 10:01 this morning. So we haven't done anything yet. And so instead, I'm going to make this talk a little bit more non-scientific. Let's think about it. And if there's time, maybe even talk about it. And none of my technology works, even when Steele's running it.
Just tell me next slide and we'll be good, Eli. Yeah, no problem.
Well, I don't see, it just says loading where I am.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it says the Google Doc is loading still, so I'm not sure if you're...
Okay.
It should be open in sheets or in slides.
Oh, you're right. 1 second, everyone.
This is us running a technology grant for the County of San Diego. We are absolutely the right ones for it.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, I see. Okay, 1 second. Let's see if this goes. You see that now?
I do.
Excellent. Sorry about that.
All right. Well, welcome to our talk on the Resilient Shield. I pulled a quote from a William Gibson novel. The future is already here. It's just not very evenly distributed. And I think what we're seeing today is there's parts of our world that are advancing beyond the speed that we can comprehend. And there's parts of our world that are being left behind. So what we want to do is take the problem of our public health and safety and take the most advanced technologies, give Xbox and Tesla-like capabilities to our county. So next slide. A shout out from whence this group came was just before and strongly during COVID. A group of individuals who didn't really know each other, didn't really have to spend time together, basically lived on Zoom, either as a group called Earth 2 or later through NSF funding as our Resilient Collective. There's a little barcode at the top right corner if you want to reach us. And it's this Resilient Collective that started to put out sort of solutions that we thought were important and apply to grants that we thought would be good for our group and useful for the world. And this is the group with some new friends that that raised this CDC baby that I'm going to tell you about. So next slide. Our vision is that what we need is a mosaic of thriving communities where the diversity of Earth's individuals and organizations all contribute, harnessing collective wisdom to foster resilience, innovation, and adaptability in the face of uncertainty and evolving threats, from pandemics to poverty, climate change to culture change. The reality is we can and we need to do better. Next slide. Steele, these are all pretty short, so even if you get ahead of me. So this is really where we talk about Resilient Shield. This is a integration between a group of academics, industry, and the County of San Diego to bring advanced outbreak intelligence for public health resilience. Next slide.
Mm-hmm.
We have an enormous and wonderful team. I'm highlighting just a small group of our steering committee, which is our co-PIs and co-directors. First, a shout out to the County of San Diego and one of our lead links, Dr. Seema Shah. At the university, our absolute superstars, Natasha Martin leading the Frontline Analytics Group. Eliah Zaslavsky at the Supercomputer Center is co-leading our Integration and Intelligence Group. Camille Nebeker here at UCSD is making sure we're ethical and developing ethical and policy frameworks. Ravi Goyal is our secret, not so secret, public health intelligence agent and wonderful partner. Mark Hancock, I always have to say this, I read his textbook, now I work with him. Ran statistics at UCLA, now runs our dynamical systems modeling and other fun things. Roy Ribeiro, the only person in a suit and tie in our group, is at Los Alamos National Labs and brings in amazing modeling capabilities. Bill Lober from the University of Washington is on standards and health surveillance. We have Mohsen Melikinejad in one of my favorite pictures of him where he's building Legos for resilience. Brings our public health and monitoring evaluation capabilities. Rich Carpiano is with Camille on our policy and ethics evaluation frameworks, and Alex Hubenko is our program manager. And as she says, herder of cats, that's the rest of us on the call. Next slide. We, as a team now, are part of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Center for Forecasting and Outbreak Analytics and Disease Modeling Network. And we are one of 13 hubs with a coordinating center, the CFA and a CDC in the middle that are here to strengthen our public health intelligence as a team. Next slide. So the dramatic slide kind of tells us what we already know, but frames where we are today, which is that we do live in a more threatened world than ever before. We have new types of threats. We have more uncertainty in how these threats will interplay and unfold. And we all recognize we're all in resource limited settings. When we do have resources, we often fail to integrate them. And the current way we've structured our lives makes it basically impossible to scale. Next slide. More to the point for those on the call, we also know we have an expanding catalog of infectious disease threats. We have endemic, re-emerging, and multi-drug resistant organisms living around us, popping their head like hepatitis A in our homeless. We have polio and measles, which are vaccine preventable illnesses, which are coming back due to politics and other fun. We have a constant march of a global pandemic of tuberculosis with increasing resistance so that it's multiple, it's resistant to many or all, nearly all drugs. We have new kinds of bacteria running around who have, they can live in the environment or our bellies, but they can end up killing and harming the people we love, and they're getting worse and they are internationalized. We also have not just bacteria, but yeast who can colonize our world. We have other kinds of pathogens. We've started to hear about other emerging pathogens and things that come from animals. We have monkeypox and Ebola and other viral hemorrhagic fevers that can now get on a plane or a ship or hop over a border and come to our sunny town of San Diego. Before 3 years ago, terms like SARS and MERS were uncommon in our vocabulary. We all know them now. And there's more possible from spillover events, from lab spillover events. And then as we have a changing climate, we have new vectors for illnesses like mosquitoes and ticks, and they're moving and they have new illnesses. And then as we merge AI and synthetic biology, we have the possibility of novel and synthetic organisms. Things we didn't think of, like prion disease, which I studied, which is an infectious disease that is under no circumstances alive, to new ways of causing infections that we haven't even conceived yet. So this is a new pandemic age, and we need to think differently about how we react. Next slide. What our hope is that this integrated program between academic, industry, our community, led by the County of San Diego's needs, ends up being what we want is a living lab for collective intelligence and disease forecasting that you can inhabit physically or digitally, whether you're in San Diego or in Washington, D.C. And it's cut off, but ultimately we want this to be a reference design, a blueprint that others can share, that can connect, we can learn from as a team, because we're part of a network, and the network's part of a system, and the system is here to support the country, and we need to think about how we scale. Next slide. What's our goalpost? What's our North Star? It seems simple, but if we can do an A+, 10 out of 10 job effectively serving the County of San Diego in its public health intelligence needs, there's a zen to that. I won't say we can serve anybody, but doing our job well, focusing on one group, even as we have partners, that's our North Star. Are we doing well here? And what we want to do is to integrate all the intelligence that our county and our team needs. We want to advance science and ultimately deliver these people-centered toolkits, playbooks that can be reused and connected by anyone. Next slide. So it sounds ambitious. How do we get there? We have not written out a point-by-point plan that tells us the answer because we don't know the answer. We're going to use the same principles that companies use and startups use, but hasn't really gotten its way into science enough, which is a basic human-centered design approach. And that says, if you want to solve a problem, you start with the people who have that problem. You design with them, you understand their needs, you develop priorities together, and then you co-design a product, a service, or a technology with them that they use, and we and you as a team continue to monitor, measure, evaluate, and improve over time. This cycle over time gets better. Next slide. So who is our community? We recognize that we are in San Diego, which is unceded land from the first people, the Kumeyaay, who got here. We have neighbors and friends in Mexico, to which there is a long history and the world's busiest border. And we have the American people, as well as other guests who come and go in San Diego, and we really need to think about all of them. Infectious disease is especially democratic. We know that diseases go everywhere, and so do we. And oftentimes they even like to go to the places we don't like to go to. And so it forces us to think about diversity and inclusion and our equity and how we shift our resources. So this is our people, and this is who we design for. Next slide. I kind of said it here. The job of San Diego is to take care of the people in San Diego. This is a complicated area. We know it. We've got borders, we've got military, we have the ocean bringing cruise ships. And again, our focus needs to be on the problems that we face here, even as we understand threats throughout the world. Next slide. So what's the value proposition to the community? If we serve the County of San Diego better, we serve the people of San Diego better. But ultimately, this project, which is funded for 5 years, but we hope will last forever, wants to increasingly engage the public and bring toolkits to the public so that public health includes the public. What the public gets is better service from the County of San Diego, and over time, better intelligence to make better decisions to prevent, to mitigate, and to be resilient to pandemics. Next slide. Pause, and next slide. Okay, so we're doing real work. This is a real team of scientists, and I've used a lot of imagery to make it seem fluffy, but We're organized in a bit of a modern way. We use very modern project management tools, like you see here, the Airtable system that underlies our management structure. We have integrated teams that can be working together in times of quiet and can split out and have more customer service oriented work in times of need. We call this our frontline intelligence group. It's a bit like an intelligence incident command system, and we have Natasha Martin as our incident commander for this wonderful group. But underneath this all, we have clear objectives and we have key results that drive our activities, and these are tied to the strategies and goals that the CDC expects from us. But we realize, and to take a quote that Robbie has stolen from others, it's all fun and games until you get punched in the face. And we recognize that for all our planning and all our infrastructure, when an outbreak happens, the bigger the worse. Most of your strategies go out the door, and you have to have a plan for that. And so we use an adaptive set of modeling strategies, assessment strategies, policy strategies. And what we do is we build our monitoring and evaluation into our work so that what we can get is real-time understanding of what's working, what's not working, over time improve our system, and be able to put out useful reports to our partners and to the CDC. Next slide. We have a bit of a large goal. What we want to do is create always-on, scalable digital infrastructure to which we can add adaptive forecasting, modeling, simulation, analytics technologies. We want to embed in, both in our digital system and our human system, our monitoring and evaluation, the way a computer programmer would have testing built into their own computer program. We add, and if there's time, we'll talk a little bit more, we add novel human system integration or human technology teamwork approaches that include serious games, human simulations, and game-assisted training. As part of those interactions, whether interacting with model-based games, models themselves, or digital twins that we're building. And these digital twins can be three-dimensional navigable spaces in Unreal Engine. We can fly over San Diego. We can go through rooms. If we were to set up, for instance, another command center or a place for homeless people, we could evaluate airflow, we could evaluate the size, and we could do planning without having to actually physically be in a space. Ultimately, what we want to do is gather all of these technologies into next generation interfaces that make public health declarative and preemptive and easy. So our team can not be at the front line. So we can maybe even take a vacation or have a group session that isn't so stressful. So next slide. Just going to go through a little bit of the work we're doing. When you think about what I said about being people-centered and the people of San Diego are taken care of by the county of San Diego, we have our frontline help desk. This is the Incident Command for Intelligence. Natasha Martin is in this picture, the tall, handsome gentleman with the VR glasses helping out our public health group. So think of us like a public health intelligence coffee shop, and when you need your services, you come to us for forecasting, intelligence, policy, and analytics, and you'll have a wonderful navigator at the front door. Keep saying Natasha, and if not available, our second command there would be Robbie, and you'll have a wonderful customer service that helps you navigate your intelligence needs with a back office of all of us nerds making sure the system is intelligent as you need. So the next slide. Just one case study. Don't have to ask a raise of hands who knows about hepatitis A. On the right, I think this is just to prompt our memories. We had a relatively large hepatitis outbreak recently. It's not our first. And they always seem to center around people who are the most vulnerable. Usually homeless folks, people who have unstable housing and go to community centers, are living in tents. And this makes it very difficult to model. It makes it very difficult to implement policies. And we're oftentimes left with modeling and policy questions that a team like our frontline intelligence team can answer. So one of our first case studies, this is not just a case study, but an action that our team is working on with the county, is to look at a new emerging hepatitis outbreak, while at the same time looking at our prior data. And we can help the county with some critical questions. What's the best way to control? Who should I test? How and can I vaccinate people? We can ask scientific questions like, well, we have wonderful molecular epidemiology and genetic surveillance capabilities. They can be a little slow and they can cost money, but they can be very effective. Should I use it here? So based on a similar playbook to work that Ravi Goyal and Natasha Martin and others have done in the past, in this case study, we'll employ agent-based models. We'll use adaptive strategies that look at the appropriateness of data, models, policy deployment, and our overall approach. And the goal is to put out a report to the county that they can use to drive our system improvement and potentially to generate academic news publications. Next slide. Like I said, many of us would prefer not to be at the front line anymore. It's been a while. And how can we move from this reactive, reflexive sort of engagement strategy that's built around episodic events to a continuous intelligence that doesn't require us to jump up and down every time there's a fire? Next slide. So this is where the real work of building long-term infrastructure is coming in. Through the Qualcomm Institute and our many partnerships in this group, we are building the next generation of digital infrastructure for outbreak intelligence. We're bringing in streams of clinical and public health data from as far away as across the world or as integrated in the state of California or in San Diego. We're looking at what at one time seemed like new data, but is really not. And this is this recognition that we and the bugs that live with us are part of an entire environment. Our health is one, and we need to look across the entire environment to surveil not just wastewater, but free water, surfaces and fomites, air, and we want to get good at this. And so we'll start with understanding the data types available, the technologies available, bringing in the data we can and learning how to use it well. And we'll hope to expand with partners and new technologies to make it better. We also realize there's an Internet of Health things. There are smartphones that are constantly taking signals from our bodies, that are taking signals from our environments. And they also allow us to engage with them and put in citizen-derived data from, I just took a COVID test and it was positive, and maybe I'll follow through and report that. Has anybody here, raise your hand, reported a negative test? Wouldn't that be nice? But new kinds of data can come from citizens. They can use their phones to report things that they see, et cetera. And then just in this whole new digital world we live in, from TikTok to Reddit, we are in many ways being tracked. Our mobility physically, our mobility in social networks that we're connected to, we leave digital and media data exhaust. All of these data need to be assessed for their utility, and when they're useful, they need to be brought in. Next slide. So you have the data. What are you going to do with it? Well, what we need is simulation capacity or digital intelligence capacity that allows us to sort of integrate these data and make use of them. One of our unique aspects is that we're building a dynamical systems model, what we call a resilient community model. Our intelligence team, Mark, myself, many others working on this. And I hope someday to show folks and let you engage with this. It'll be soon. But this is a model where we can actually see how communities, infectious diseases, and information move in a graphical user interface. We can visualize what's happening. And underneath it, we have structured and differential equations that allow us to actually solve complex problems. We use these kinds of models both for strategic planning, but more interesting, these models back up our serious games in our new model-based serious games approach. We also have more typical models, agent-based models and statistical models. We have in-host and vector models. All these models need a home. And right now they live on many different people's laptops. And each time there's an outbreak, they have to think about, do I have enough computing power? Do I have all the data I need? Do I have enough storage capacity? And so what we're hoping is to get some of our best models in the same place in this always-on infrastructure that can work when the power goes out and is physically housed with cogen at the Qualcomm Institute, or when the power is not housed on our Elastic web services through Amazon. So we want to create a new home where our models can live and grow, and our programmers can access them without having to think about if their laptop overheats. Next slide. Okay, so we have data and we have models, and we now have this new world of threats that we've been talking about. But the problem is, what do I match to what? Is Robbie's agent-based model the best problem to solve this? Is Mark's dynamic systems model the best way to solve this? Is this an economics problem? And really, one of Natasha's models to show us how resources move is the problem. What we're trying to create is basically a dating site or a matchmaking game that's smarter than match, but uses real assessment of the right problem to the right solution, and over time measures how that relationship went and makes better matches in the future. This is real work that starts with understanding what models are out there, what data is out there, what visualizations are out there, how they perform, and how they're intended to perform under the right circumstances. This will over time be our dating site, and we're going to get better at it. So when the county says I have a problem, we can say you should gather this data, use this model, do these interventions, and check out our pretty graphics. Next slide. I keep bringing it up. If you're at the Center for Disease Control and you have a grant with them and you don't say monitoring and evaluation, then you missed some of the point of doing the work. Monitoring and evaluation is good. It means you know what you're doing. You know what's working, what's not working. And if you take the time, you take what's working and you keep that, and you take what's not working and you stop. One of the problems is that M&E can be hard. It can require labor. One moment, I have a phone call. All right, team, I hope I'm back. On the top right, you see what M&E looks like today. It's an Excel spreadsheet, oftentimes with yellows, some boxes, you fill it in. But we think M&E has a higher purpose, which is to be our situational awareness group, telling us how things are going, telling us ahead of time when we're about to fail, and making our system sort of a continuous quality improvement organism, and putting out the reports that we need to the CDC. Next slide. So today, I think we all recognize that our public health intelligence interfaces are still faxes. That's how data sometimes still moves. They are sometimes old computers with Excel spreadsheets. Those might be printed. And the best of us have cool-ish dashboards that show some of the data we need and kind of the way we need it. But let's just really think if infinitely wealthy group of bandits who had run the greatest tech and industry companies that we actually like, so I won't name anything that we know today, and they put their energy into what the digital operations center for their city of San Diego looked like, it can be much better. So we want to have the ability to be able to navigate and understand what's going on in outbreaks, to be able to do simulation and get answers. It should be easy, and really it should be forward thinking. Whether we're in an outbreak, we need our digital operations system or center, or when we're not in an outbreak, when we're simulating, playing games, and we're learning, we need to make this better, and that's going to be one of the great parts of this project. Next slide. So this is really what we're saying, which is that let's bring the best outbreak intelligence and create a next generation environment that really probably doesn't look like anything we could have imagined a year ago. We have 5 years to do this. We're going to start off by doing the right job with the tools we have today, but we're going to learn from those, and we're going to build something better, that's cooler, that makes everybody happier, and it also protects the people of San Diego and hopefully the United States and the rest of us. Next slide. Many people talk about sustainability and scale. It's very early for us. So the way we do this right now is we just hope to be useful and reusable. And if we are useful and reusable, we hope people like us and want to give us money to sustain ourselves so we can be more useful. That's all I have to say about that. Next slide. And just an entire full recognition that it takes a village to raise any project today. So from Davey Smith and the Prepare Institute and Steele, who've given in-kind support and time and love to our projects, to many of you on this call who have worked with us or just been nice, and to our entire team who is about to do something both noble and a little scary. I want to say thank you and recognize that this is an orchestra without, front-end superstars named Eli or Willy Wonka. We want to be something different. We want to be a team. And so to that end, let me go to the last slide. And while I've called out some of our steering committee and co-PIs, I want to make sure I take a little time to get to the rest of them. So first, Prepare brought us here. So thank you, Davey and Liz and Steele and all the Prepare members. And then think about the also rans here. So my mentor and somebody we all love, it has made it to the second page, but he's one of the strengths of our grant, as is everybody, Chip Schooley, helping us in this case. Now in his new world of multi-drug resistant organisms, saving people through phage, helping us in general with outbreak intelligence. I did mention Ravi Goyal already, one of our superstars. All of these are. Stephanie Strasty will be working with Chip on our AMR and phage work. Davey Smith is helping us in our vaccine therapeutic data information. We have an engagement with Anita Raj's where she is now a director. We will be hopefully engaging with Tulane through Anita and friends. We have Shamim Namadi, who works in predictive analytics. We have Andy Barco, who works in environmental, surveillance and data. We have Joel Wertheim, who's helping us with our molecular epidemiology and genetic surveillance. Drew Hall, who with me is working on a biocamera and looking at novel biosensing data and eventually technologies. Wonderful team from UCSF with Karen Horn, managing the monitor and evaluation with another guiding light, George Rutherford at UCSF. We have Mark Beatty at the county working with Seema, Wilma, and Eric Donald. We have Mike Hogarth, who's not on the grant, but just always helps, and I wanted to give him a shout out. He wrote letters and is helping us bring in BRAID data. We have amazing staff. I've mentioned Alex already. We have Caitlin Bartlett on grants and contracts. We have Rishi Graham on math and computing, David Valentine on modeling and computing, and many more. We also have wonderful consultants. Sarah Krugman is a professional graphic artist and service designer, helping us do our ethnography, service design, and visualization. Christian Poe, who's been a product manager and leader in industry like IBM, is our technical product manager, helping us get our resources organized. We have a quite famous and amazing game designer. I encourage you to look up his articles, Reed Berkowitz. Evan Anderson from Strat News has been running strategic games for the military, for others for many years, and supports us on our games. And Raphael Yalom is a computational everything, computational economist, physics, fintech, security, and he's one of our consultants through MIT that's helping make us smarter. So to these and anybody I've sort of missed and forgotten, I want to say thanks. Wouldn't be here without all of you. And that is my last slide, and I wanted to leave a minute or two for questions. So thanks.
Thanks, Eli. Thanks, Steele. Thanks for getting all that together despite Zoom difficulties, which is playing with my day all day. So it might not just be you, Eli. It might be everything across UCSD. Anybody have any questions?
Hi, I actually had a question. Just to kind of put a more kind of, I guess, concrete, just so I can kind of understand a little bit like how it would work. So I presume this is also going to be kind of new surveillance, or is this taking existing surveillance pipelines as far as the data that's going in? That's my first question. And then, walk me through what would happen. So homeless people are getting sick in downtown San Diego. How would I engage this process?
Okay, the first question. So we do not have infinite resources and magic drones collecting all of the data. So we're reliant on relationships to get data, like our relationship with CDPH or the County of San Diego. Or if we were working with people doing surveillance nationally, like the CDC. So a lot of our data is from others through data use agreements. In cases like the hepatitis A, where we're actually hoping to do some genetic surveillance, The way it works, it's the implementing partner, the County of San Diego, who would need to be gathering that data traditionally, and we would be helping interpret it. There may be specific later on grants and projects where we bring more resources to do special types of testing. But oftentimes, air quotes here, the data for us has to be convenient. We're not the implementers. Is that a good enough answer, Dr. Lewinsky, for the where does data come
I
from?
guess, that's what I was trying to figure out, like and what stages, because you have a lot of people that have done kind of worked on all sorts of facets of this sort of thing. Okay, so the county has some data that they share with you about a potential outbreak of something, downtown or whatever. And so then what? I mean, basically, I use this platform to kind of model who's at risk, or am I collecting more data?
You can pick your policy question. And in a hepatitis outbreak, you might use agent-based modeling to look and see where super spreaders are. You might use molecular epidemiology to understand where the actual movement of the virus is through populations you can't see. Again, I wish we had more time. I would show you our dynamic systems model. You can have an understanding of the overall system, even supply chains and logistics, and you can optimize across them. You may have this very narrow question, like we might focus on around whether or not to use a specific type of testing. Natasha Martin just came on. Natasha, is that a target for Eli to say, do you want to say more about hepatitis? No, it's not. Okay. So Natasha's sort of, like I said, the front line leading the project with the county as our, I don't know what to call our county, our partner, our integration partner, but we're working for them on that. So the questions can be protean. What we're actually trying to do is gather a lot of the types of questions that have already been asked, start to pre-assemble them, have FAQs, start to understand what are the really smart questions we can ask with modeling. And again, using this really first use case, which with Natasha and Mark and team, to learn from this. Obviously, we have done this before. Natasha primarily and her team were doing this with the county and Return to Learn. I did this with the state and our RADX program. We have others like Bill Lober on the team who played a similar role, kind of to Natasha, but bifurcated to both, I think, local and the state. We have Roy Ribeiro, who was answering questions for the country of Portugal with his agent-based model. So it's not meant to be a non-straight answer by talking a lot. There's just, there are a lot of kinds of policy questions you can answer with forecasting and analytics. So we're going to have to start to prioritize them. And that's what our matchmaking service is eventually about, to see what's fit for what.
Cool, thanks. I think Steph has a question.
And hi, Mary. I haven't talked to you in ages. I miss you.
Hi.
Who's next? Steph? No.
Yeah, I just put something in the chat. I mentioned that, like, historically many outbreaks have first been identified when an astute physician observes something, right?
Mhm.
And says, even like SARS-CoV-2, like, in China. So it makes me wonder, is there already, or could there be some kind of marketing or communication system set up? Also working that with the county, since obviously we don't want to hear first, they should be hearing first. To be able to, capitalize upon those situations?
100%. That's what Bill Lober and well, we have two really. So there's a number of types of healthcare syndromic surveillance you can imagine doing. You can have, when a syndrome is entered into the chart, makes you want to enter symptoms into the chart correctly. You can have automated surveillance, right? And that's now made much easier through something called FHIR. It's basically the HL7 for the internet age. And we have both Bill, who knows how to write standards for this and Fire apps. And we have Shamim, who knows how to build Fire apps and implement them in systems like Epic or Cerner. So one of the things over time we want to get better at is bringing in health data that's being run through syndromic surveillance filters, so that good doctor doesn't have to pick up the syndrome anymore. And well, I hope they still do, but the key is that good doctor is now being able to work with technology to do it. Likewise, there's other things you can do working with LabCorp and other areas where either odd bugs or bugs that we're surveilling for can trigger alerts. So there's many opportunities that don't just involve sort of Natasha jumping up and helping the county, where we're trying to create this more non-episodic situational awareness. And systems like fire apps will help. Likewise, we hope to look at bugs like bacteria and yeast across the county and more. And there you can have both potential for regional antimicrobial intelligence, but also when new bugs pop up at, say, Scripps, then people over at, say, UCSD might be aware of it. So a lot of opportunities outside of the episodic thinking and into sort of inbuilt health surveillance. You can imagine doing this for Google Health searches. There's another group called Health Tap, which is one of the places where people put in their symptoms and see what disease. Ideally, if they put in the symptoms of sore throat, belly pain, diarrhea, and bleeding out of their pores, it would direct them to a hazmat suit and trigger an Ebola alert, for instance. So we want to explore all of these sort of data sources with the resources we have and the prioritization we can do. But that's a really exciting opportunity. Likewise, Steph, when people pick things up in the environment and they wouldn't really talk to doctors about it or epidemiologists, maybe they're doing ocean science, we can connect with them too. So we want to broaden our surveillance net. Long answer. More questions? And thanks, Steph. Am I wrong? This is a somewhat small group and most of the people already know what's going on.
Mighty group, but it's a good update. So I do appreciate it. I learned stuff.
I learned something.
Oh, thanks, Mary. You're super smart. If you learned something, that's great. And just if anybody's nervous, this is not the kind of talk that I'm going to give when we actually are in front of the CDC. We have a button down version of this we're working on, call it the science-based talk. But I didn't know who would be here today. And I also didn't know if people have been thinking about design thinking. This whole, make sure you're solving the right problem, work with the people and prototype, iterate fast. I don't know. If you already know it, that's great. If it's the first time you heard it, it's worth it. So if there's no more questions, back to Davey.
Yep. Okay. Everybody, thank you very much. Steele, do we have any other final announcements?
Just to make sure that everyone attends next month, we'll have Anita Schleresh from find.org. She's a colleague of Tim Broadwell, who I'm sure many of you know rather well, but I'm looking forward to that, and we'll have details on that are pending. So thank you so much to Dr. Spencer. Always a pleasure working with you, and to everyone who came today, and thank you again for supporting the series. And Davey, have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.